everyone, welcome back to another episode of Workflow Wonders, the podcast dedicated to uncovering the secret behind streamlined productivity. I'm your host, Alex Storey, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Maddie LeMay, the storytelling expert behind Lemay Story Studio. Maddie helps businesses craft powerful brand narratives and engaging stories that resonate deeply with their audiences. At Lemay Story Studio, she combines strategy, creativity, and storytelling to bring brands to life. So welcome, Maddie. Great to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing better. Thanks for that energy. Wow.
Yeah, no, I like to bring the energy because this is can sometimes be a little bit of a boring topic, talking about people's operations and workflows and everything. But for those who are tuning in for the first time, this is what we do. I sit down with business owners, founders, leaders, and entrepreneurs, and we deep dive into their processes, their workflows to see where we can optimize, strategize, and ultimately automate eventually. So that is what we're here to do and learn, and hopefully get some mileage out of that. But yeah, Maddie, thank you for being on. I guess let's just get started. Just tell us a little bit more about your business, Lemay Story Studio.
Yeah, well, thanks, Alex, first of all, for having me. You're the real deal. I respect you a lot, so this is exciting for me. I am a copywriter by trade, so I started Lemay Story Studio out of a desire to get paid to write for a living, and I am so honored that I get to do that. I help businesses essentially figure out how to say what they need to say in a way that resonates with their customers. So if you've ever said, gosh, I don't know how to say this, or I don't know how to describe my business to somebody in a way that really makes sense, that's what I can help you figure out how to do.
That's awesome. I will say I love the brand name. I might be a little biased because we kind of share the same name, Lemay Story Studio. But no, I love the name and I love storytelling. And like I said, I'm biased. But I know a little bit about Lemay Story Studio, and I think one of the philosophies that you work with is the story brand script. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I became, if anyone's ever heard of Alex, I think you know of StoryBrand and Donald Miller.
Yeah.
So there's a book called Marketing Made Simple, and in that book it sort of outlines this process of how to tell a story in a way that is going to capture your clients' or dream clients' attention. And every business has a story, but the problem is most businesses tell their story. And the key is it's not about you, it's about your customers and your clients. And so we kind of flip the script and we say, what is your customer's story? What are they going through? What are their pain points? And then from there, we introduce you as a business as the sidekick or the guide. So a brand script is really just, it's kind of like a storyline or an outline. Like if you were to write a movie or a book, it's an outline of how you would talk about your customer's story. And it really is helpful for businesses who just don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges that I see now when I look at especially newer business owners and sometimes even more seasoned ones is they focus more like, on the features and like talk about like, this is what we do, not necessarily like how we impact our customers' lives and like kind of like how we help them on their journey and help them achieve their goals. It's more like we have X, Y, and Z feature and we have X, Y, and Z product, and they kind of miss a little bit of the point and like, why is nobody buying it? It's because, well, they don't have a reason to, right? And so that's my oversimplification of a story brand script. But
Yes.
I think that's kind of, if you're trying to communicate better, like the value of your brand and your business, this is for the folks listening, is check out that book, by Donald Miller and, bare minimum. And of course, if you want to peek at the stuff that Maddie's doing, check out her website and you can kind of see a little bit more about like what it looks like on a website, etc. So.
And I have some free brand script templates on my website too. With ChatGPT now, it's really easy actually if you read the book to do it yourself. So take advantage of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. That is fantastic. So you heard it here first. More resources. I'm a big fan of free. So so when we think about those storytelling challenges, like what are some common misconceptions that businesses have about, I guess, copywriting and storytelling in general?
I think the biggest misconception is that more content equals more engagement. And I see that happening a lot, especially with businesses that maybe haven't invested in marketing before and now they have the money to invest. And so they're eager and they're really excited to do that. What we're seeing now is the audience really cares a lot about authenticity and seeing the real you behind the scenes as it relates to them, of course.
Yeah.
we are seeing less and less interest in just pumping out content. And I think that's because it's so easy to do now. I mean, anyone with half a brain can go into AI and say, write me 5 blogs for the week and publish those, right? So like quantity doesn't necessarily do much anymore. It really never did, but especially now with AI. A lot of people ask me like, do you feel threatened by AI right now? And I say, absolutely not. I think that because I know how to synthesize in conversations, like I know how to get answers out of people that are going to translate into their messaging. So I still use AI, but I feel like a superhuman now with AI because I know how to extract the answers from a business owner to give AI a prompt that will generate like a really high quality post on LinkedIn or on their website or even with website copy. So yeah, I would say the biggest misconception is that quantity matters right now. It's really about quality.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great thing to point out. I think for those of you who are following the news, Klarna, I guess the financing company, I think that's what they do. They just came out with a just a big announcement that they're hiring, only human customer service associates. Now this is after they laid off like 700 of them. So I think they realized, oh crap, we can't replace all these people with AI. But I think that's part of it. I think the quote I'm kind of mishandling here, but it's something along the line of like, we're going to be, in the age of AI, being a human-centered company can be a differentiator. And I think that's something that's huge. When you talked about being replaced by AI, and anybody listening here that might have that fear in those individual contributor roles is, just if you embrace it, if it becomes part of your tool set, you'll become 10 times, 15 times, 20 times more effective. I mean, that's what skill management does. It's not just about saving time, it's about multiplying your productivity. So I think that's something to focus on. I think the folks who will be replaced, or the roles that will be replaced, are a lot of those busy work situations where, you just needed a body to press buttons. And hopefully that means, this is me being a little bit AI futurist, that those folks, are able to kind of focus on more meaningful work to them. Yeah, and so that's me being a little optimistic. I'm sure there's going to be some friction early on, but yeah, I think for those who are skilled, it's a lot harder to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Maddie, for that little intro and talking to us a little bit about AI and especially the story brand and what you're doing with that. This next segment is I should probably have a name for it, but this next segment is where we jump into looking at your workflow from A to Z, from learning how customers hear about you, all the way till, doing the work for them, then delivering your product and service, and then finally to, reputation management, and then eventually offboarding. I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen here real quick, and we'll just jump into the Miro. And Maddie, have you used Miro before?
I've used it before, but I don't have it myself.
Okay, here, let's get you in here as an editor. Copy the board link. And there should be a chat here on the right. If you want to, you don't have to, otherwise I can drive. Studio chat, and then Command V, boom. Okay, so this is the Miro board, and I'm just gonna get this set up, and then we'll jump into the chat here. So 100% is actually a lot smaller, so I do this all the time. I get the zoom.
This live action.
Yeah. Hopefully people find value from it. It helps me think, at least, at the bare minimum. Okay, this is what we'll do. So get this staged up, and I'll go one by one. Cool. And then we probably do some sort of interest expressed, probably then a discovery meeting, and then fulfillment, reputation management, and then maybe like something like that. Okay. For re-engagement. Okay. So let's do a quick align this vertically so it looks a little bit better, or distribute vertically. And we'll go ahead and get started and get back to the recording part. I probably should have hit pause on the recording, but whatever. Okay. All right, Maddie, we have the Miro board pulled up for your workflow at Lemay Story Studio. We'll start with kind of like the top of your funnel, like how folks hear about you. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast, I'll try and describe what we have on the screen. Otherwise, everyone else, this copy of this board will be available in the description if you just want to view it. But this is where we can get a behind-the-scenes look at a Lemay Story Studios behind the scenes. So I guess first off, Maddie, like what's the number one way that folks hear about you, whether it's inbound or I guess outbound outreach? Like how are folks, discovering Lemay Story Studio?
I would say I wish I had a more clear answer to that, but I would say right now it's mostly word of mouth or LinkedIn,
Okay.
and then capturing those through email.
Okay. Awesome. And so LinkedIn, so you're doing referrals, right? So that's good. That's a good problem to have, right? If you can call it a problem. I usually think of it that way just because it can be a little bit tougher to scale per se, because you know. But it sounds like, are you doing LinkedIn outreach, or is this organic, like folks looking at your posts and reaching out to you?
Yeah, it's just me posting on LinkedIn
Okay.
and folks subscribing to my newsletter through LinkedIn,
Okay.
connecting to me that way.
So we have a newsletter. I think I'm subscribed. I've seen definitely a couple of issues there. Very much better produced than my own. Well, I'm very tech savvy and probably a little techie. You know, not as fancy looking. But that, you do have a newsletter. That's not awesome. We have LinkedIn inbound. We have a newsletter. We're following from there. Do you do any cold outbound, like calls, emails, DMs? No. Okay.
I shouldn't say no. Okay, so I probably shouldn't be saying this, but my husband is in sales
Okay.
and he has on occasion been known for going into my LinkedIn. I have sales nav, and so
Yeah.
he'll send some cold messages to people that way, but it's super random, just kind of when he has time at night.
Okay. Well, that's awesome that he does that. That's really cool. I think those of you who are on the pod and listen to every episode, the 10 viewers that we have that do that, you know, we have. I just hired a business development representative that has been sending emails, not from my account, but you know, it's good to have somebody reaching out to folks when you're busy doing other stuff. I think that's good to have, you know, that capacity. So it's good that he's doing that for you. So cold LinkedIn, you're using Sales Navigator. I assume the in-mails, right? The 50 a month that you get with Sales Navigator, and then and nothing else. No cold DMs. Are you on Twitter or X, I guess? Okay. And then do you do any like agency work? Are you like subbing or white labeling at any agencies?
Actually, that's kind of why my business is unique is my leads are actually other marketing professionals right now
Hmm.
who need a copywriter to white label work out to.
Okay.
Not necessarily agencies, but people like you and I who just
Okay.
need professionals to refer work out to.
Yeah. That's a good point. I do a decent amount of websites. You know, we do these smart websites where we kind of plug in automations to them. And, you know, it would be nice sometimes because they're like, you know, what do we write here? And I'm like, I got to stress.
Yeah.
I built the website. It's up to you guys to figure out the words. So that'd be nice to, maybe we should plug in. I'm working with, well, I don't want to tell the client right now, but I'll talk to you afterwards. And we might be able to sync on that. But that's awesome. So white labeling with other, you know, business to business professionals that are maybe setting up like developing a website, or, you know, I'm guessing like others forms of copy, you know, engaging in different ways. And then you can jump in on the writing end. Am I describing that correctly?
Yep. So a lot of times it is still client facing. They just refer me. And the benefit that they have is it's I have a white label pricing guide for them. So essentially, because they're project managing everything, they're able to, you know, still make money off of it. A lot of times,
Yeah.
just straight up refer a copywriter, they're not actually able to make money off of it. So that's sort of the value that I can add.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, white labeling is the majority of my business.
Okay.
And so, like, when I do cold emails, or when my husband has done those, they're typically to other graphic designers or industry professionals who just are able to send me consistent work and find value in that.
Okay. Okay. So you have tried cold emails in the past too, and cold DMs. That's awesome. So that's really good. I'll put like a little, I don't know, I'll turn this, we'll say, you know, green, because that's where all the money comes from, right? The white labeling. Okay. So we have white labeling, and I think that's very interesting. Do you do any like gig work on like Upwork or Fiverr or anything?
No,
No
I
gig
don't do
work?
any of that. I do have two retainer clients. I'd like to have more retainer clients, and
Yeah.
those are bigger businesses with marketing teams that just don't have a full-time copywriter.
Yeah. Yep. No, and that's good. That predictability is huge when it comes to retainer clients. Okay. So, all right, we've got referrals, word of mouth, some LinkedIn inbound from just folks seeing you on LinkedIn. You have a newsletter. How many folks on your newsletter, if you don't mind me asking?
Not that many. I think almost 200 now.
Okay, 200. That's enough to do business. That's about as much as we have with the herd, go ahead and subscribe to the herd. But yeah, so you can definitely do business with 200 and keep on growing from there. How are people, do you funnel other folks into this? Like when people, I don't know, sign up for a Calendly or anything like that, do you send them an invite or anything?
I do have, yeah, it's through my Honeybook. So if somebody
Oh, okay.
sets up a discovery call with me, they'd be added.
Okay, cool. That's good. Okay, so that's a good funnel to have. That way, even folks who might not buy immediately, at least they get to see your name. I think I've said this many times on this podcast. Newsletters are huge because you control the algorithm, right? For most of the time, just sometimes people move jobs, for example, but most of the time, the post that you're sending out with your newsletter, it's getting to the inbox of your recipient. Whereas with LinkedIn, with Facebook, with YouTube, it's kind of dependent on the algorithm, even if they are following you, if it's going to show up to them in their feed. So that's really big that you have that. And for those of you who are listening, get a newsletter. I know it's another thing to add on top of your business, but it's something to get started because it will pay back in dividends. So awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we're good. I think with the white labeling that's super awesome. So you're looking for more retainer clients, more white label clients. You have a pricing guide. I think that's huge. For those of you who are listening, those partnerships are huge. You can, if you're new especially and you're skilled and you have like a valuable freelancing skill, sometimes it's faster and easier to work with established businesses because they have the clients, they just don't have the skills that you have. And I love what Maddie's doing here because she's going to these agencies and whatnot and saying, hey, you can offer these services to your customers, and that's easy for you to do. You get to collect on this and you don't have to do any of the work. And so that's, I think, huge. It's a win-win for both. And so see if there are like partners near you. Go to like a networking event and partner up with folks like that, because I think there's some useful symbiotic relationships that you could foster. Obviously, you have to do a good job. You never want to mess up on somebody else's client. That's a recipe to lose your reputation in a big way. But if you do good work, it's a great place to get more clients and get more business. So awesome. Any tips for those listening on how you started those relationships, Maddie?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to start those relationships than it is to go off and find your own onesie-twosie clients. I created a 2025 white label guide. It's what I call it, but you can call it a referral guide. And it just really eliminates all the steps that anyone would have to take to guess, like, what does she charge for, a one-page landing page? What would she charge for a single blog post? I have all that in there, but I also have like wording that they can copy and paste straight into their proposals for their clients. So they can really just copy and paste the service that I could do for them, bake my pricing into their proposals, and then boom, it's like they don't have to do any of the work, but also can make money off of managing the project through me. So
boom. Yeah, huge. So yeah, create a guide, have those partnerships, make it as easy as possible is what I'm hearing for folks to leverage those services. And I think that's great. So I imagine the next step. So after people hear about you, right, via referrals, LinkedIn inbound, maybe a newsletter, and then your cold email, there's probably a CTA to get them into some sort of form. Sounds like you're using Honeybook. And then they book a call with you, like I assume a discovery call of some form or fashion. Is that what happens next?
Yeah. So there's kind of two different audiences. Do you want to talk about the marketing professionals or direct?
Yeah. I guess. So this would be, I'm guessing then this is more standard client, but white labeling would be kind of more of like what, like I guess what's that marketing professional? What's that next step?
So usually with a marketing professional, I would just have a networking call with them and send them my white label guide. And that's a lot more natural. It doesn't feel quite as salesy.
Yeah, that's good. And then you send them the guide, send the guide. So this is something, are you pre-screening this? Or like when you are on this call, do you know they're a fit? Or do you kind of decide if they're a fit after the call?
A little bit of both. Usually the call might happen and they might not have a project for me for 4 months.
Yeah.
So then if they think of me, they'll come back, and then I can kind of determine, does this person do work that aligns with the work that I do? If not, then I probably won't work with them, or I might just send them in a different direction. if they do align with the work that I want to do, then it's, oh, is this project the right fit? Am I going to actually be able to help them and their client? Usually it's pretty cut and dry. It's like they just need 3 pages of website copy.
Okay, okay. Awesome. And so I know you mentioned you had a couple different templates. Do you sell any other like digital products or anything?
I don't sell any digital products.
Okay, okay. So that is an interesting thing that for anybody listening, I don't sell any at all either. Well, I guess you could tell my chatbots are technically digital products because you can subscribe to them. But what you could do for folks who aren't fits is you could say, okay, hey, I'm not a fit for this service, but maybe like you could download my thing, right? Or, buy my course or whatever. So that's a good option for when you have those no's. This is more for everybody on the call and myself, to be honest. But I'll go ahead and put that here as a no. Just funneling to this.
That's a great thought. I have offered before, here's my template that you can use to do it yourself, and you can pay me to edit it. No one's taken me up on that yet. So maybe a digital product would be better.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to kind of have those fall offs and whatnot. So like, okay, if you don't like maybe you'll get this cheaper thing. And that way at least it helps with the cost of acquisition for those business nerds here. Like if you're spending X dollars trying to get a client, you can at least get some money on the ones that aren't converting to a full client to reduce the cost of acquisition for your average client. So this kind of helps with those, those bundles of templates, digital products, courses and those kind of things. Obviously, you have to spend the time to build those things. So, that's why I don't have them right now. But it is a recommendation, a good best practice. Awesome. So if they are a fit, though, you send them your document, send them the white label document. And I imagine, if they would then kind of, you onboard them into your Honeybook portal? Is that what happens next?
Yeah. So then we do a trial project.
A trial project, okay.
And that's at a discount to them. It's to see, whether or not we're a good fit for each other.
Okay.
It protects both of us.
Oh, I like that. So this is kind of like, hey, for us to work together, it's like I don't know what your pricing is, but like, for example, at Skill Mammoth, we might do like we have the transformation blueprint where it's $4.99 and we just do like an audit of their workflows. And then if they decide to go with us, then they get $4.99 towards their next project. Is this something like that, I'm guessing? Like
it's more so they just get 20% off of whatever they need, and they can pick from my like menu of white label services. So that might be a brand script, that might be a full website copy for a client.
Okay.
But yeah, the idea is you don't have to marry me.
Yeah.
Let's try it. If it doesn't work, then we don't have to keep doing this together. But I'm really interested in long-term relationships because I want to treat my white label partners like they are the client and really get to know like their process and how they like to work. And so the trial just, I think, helps us understand that before we jump into any formal, like, let's consistently work together.
Okay. And so you put them into the client portal after the trial project then?
Well, I guess they would be in the client portal because they'd be in my Honeybook
Okay.
system. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't answer your question clearly.
No worries. No, it's good. I'm just so you do, and so what do you do for your onboarding? Do you just send like a video or do you send like a document?
I just send that I could use help here.
Okay.
I use Honeybook and I have pre-built templates, but it's like a contract with an invoice.
Okay.
And then I have like some templated emails.
Okay. Some templated emails. And is it like a drip campaign? Like, hey, welcome to Lemay Story Studio.
No,
this
I
is
send
day
it.
one.
I send it manually.
Send them manually. Okay. Awesome. That's an interesting thing to think about too. Do you even want to send it automated, or would that because like, it's kind of your thing, right? It's a kind of a interesting juxtaposition. I'm always a fan of doing less work. I'd love to automate it, and that's what we do. Once you book with us, you'll get put on a welcome to Skill Mammoth thing where you get a video from me talking about how to use a client portal. You'll get another email asking, where do you want your free gift to get sent to?
Yeah.
It'll send you the free gift, and then then if you don't sign up for a kickoff call in a certain period of time, it'll keep on nudging you. But so that's
Yeah, okay, so a couple things about that. I love the idea of automation. I'm all for it. One of my challenges with it, with specifically white label clients, is number one, I think the reason why a lot of these like graphic designers, website designers like working with me is I follow whatever their process is. And
Hmm.
I can kind of like put myself into that fold instead of saying this is what my process is, you're going to follow it. If they don't have a process, like I have one.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm sure there's a way to send emails that, convey that. But if I was working directly with a business owner doing their website copy, it would be very cut and dry. Here's how it works. Here's what this process is going to look like, and here's how we're going to get to the finish line. But with a white label client, when I'm working with an agency owner, um, I don't want to come across as like domineering
Yeah.
the process, if that makes sense.
Interesting. And maybe this is something I could learn. I just kind of jump in and say, this is how I'm going to work with you. And so maybe slow it down. I haven't got any feedback yet about that, but I know we do different work, but that is interesting. So you you plug into like almost like a we'll say like a contracted employee in a way,
Yeah.
where you're kind of on their team, you're working with them, following their processes. Okay, cool. That's really good to know. And then and so maybe like, and you're sending them. Do you ever have to send like W-9s, I guess, then, and like that kind of stuff? Or okay, cool. So awesome. Okay, so then yeah, I think maybe you're right. Maybe like something at the very beginning, just saying, hey, this is how I can plug into your team. These are my expectations as far as like pay, deliverables, that kind of thing, and like and maybe just I need a kickoff call and some documentation on how I should work, and it needs to be clear or something, right? So that way, you don't get into the world of scope creep.
Yeah, or maybe I could say, let's do a kickoff call to talk about your process and how
Hmm.
you'd like me to communicate with your clients because naturally they're going to be very protective over their clients.
Yes.
I just want to be very transparent. Like, I'm going to follow your process. However, you want me to communicate with your clients is how I'll communicate with them, whether that's just over email or you want me to do an onboarding call with them. So, and I do for each of my white label partners, I have an SOP for
Okay.
them in my Google Drive, all the way down to like, here's how they like, here's the tone they like to have in their
Good.
communication with their clients.
Okay. That's awesome, and that's good that you have that. Oh, perfect.
I like
So
the idea of an automation that explains that value.
yeah, I'll just kind of give you some of the behind the scenes for us and what we do. So once people pay, right? So they'll get a Stripe invoice, and it's all automated after that payment. Once it gets paid, a drip campaign gets started talking about like basically just giving them reinforcing that they made a good decision. So they'll get a whole bunch of stuff about like we helped so and so with this, we helped so and so in this. It's 7 days. 7 days is this campaign. They'll get a video from me, the founder, thanking them for joining Skill Mammoth. They'll also get a form saying, "Hey, just a little gift for you guys." And once they fill it out, we send them, a Yeti mug. I don't have any near me right now, but a branded Yeti mug. And then we also send a handwritten mail, which is also automated. Then they also get into our client portal and they get a link to share that with anybody else that they think is a decision maker or somebody who needs to be on the portal to like give feedback on the projects that we're working on. And then they also get that in a PowerPoint as well, just because some folks, for some reason, I want a physical file, right, versus just the video of me talking about it. And yeah, and then a lot of that same stuff is in the portal. So when they log in, there's a little checklist of like onboarding, and they can check it off, watch the video, and they have to upload their style documents. So like their logo, their style guide, so I know their branding colors and that kind of stuff. And so that gives you kind of an idea of how we work. And then I like to do a kickoff call with the working team that is less about, because all the calls that I've had at that point are learning about the problems and then eventually selling the service. So the next one is more of like all right, let's sit down and talk about the work, right? And so that's what the kickoff call is all about. And so sometimes it takes a long time to get that scheduled. So I always nudge, even though they're in the client portal, they're chatting and stuff, I always like just to set that expectation up front because of, you want to, at least in my experience, it's a good way to kind of capture a lot of stuff that they're not saying via email or via message. And you let me know if you run into this, Maddie, but sometimes I'll talk to a client one week and then next week I'll talk to them again. They're like, oh yeah, we totally went into a totally different direction. We're doing this now. And I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Okay.
yeah.
So is that what's the average like project length for you and then sale price if you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah.
For those I usually take on 3 to 4 website copy projects a month. They might be anywhere between $1,800 and $2,200 each.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
We're
sending a gift. I'm just trying to think of, I love the idea of being generous. How do you kind of take that into consideration?
Yeah. So our average deal is $2,300,
Okay.
according to my CRM as of today. Right. And so that's our average deal. And then, a custom Yeti is about $60. And we could get it cheaper if we just ordered in bulk, but that's a problem we don't have right now. So I'm not going to spend $1,000 on custom Yeti mugs until then. And then we use a service called Handwritten, if you've heard of them. So it's really, really cool. So what they do is they literally have a robot holding a pen and it writes on a postcard. And then it sends them in like an actual like envelope that looks like somebody, just hand stamped it and then writes on the front and everything. And then you can stuff it with stuff. So I send a letter, handwritten by me, thanking them. And then it has a little instant coffee packet on the inside. And the copy says something like, hey, I wish we could have coffee in person, but instead I got you this, right? And so
That's so cool.
yeah, and that's about $7 per gift. And I've had feedback from many of my clients that part of our onboarding, like they like that sometimes more than the expensive Yeti mug, because it's it's just very personal and unique. And we also capture their birthdays and anniversaries. So we use a project management tool called Asana, and so that triggers on the back end. After a month goes by, we'll get an email thanking them for, you've been with Skill Mammoth for a month, and then, 6 months, and then a year. And then depending on that, they'll get a letter from Handwritten, as well as on their birthday, if we can find it. Sometimes, it's a little bit tougher to just get that information to pop up in a conversation. We try to be subtle about it. I learned this from a book called Unreasonable Hospitality.
One of my favorite books.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so it's a great book. And there's another book that I steal from called The Experience Economy, written by a Minnesotan, for those of you who are local. Experience Economy is another one too that talks about like how you can make your product, it's less like a commodity and more like an experience, right? So anyway, and it's as far as like part of the overall expense, it's such a small amount that I think it's worth it right now, while we're still early. We've only been in business for about 1.5 years, and we've only been doing the automation offer for a couple months now, so it's been good so far.
Yeah, thanks for those ideas. I really like the idea of automating it. Yeah, that book, Unreasonable Hospitality, after I read it, I've really been thinking of how to be generous with my clients in a way that doesn't add to, like, I don't want to take away from their experience because I'm too stressed trying to think about being generous.
Yeah.
So the automation piece would be awesome.
Yeah. So for those of you who are nerds listening to this, all those tools that I recommended, they all have API connectors, including Handwritten, by the way. So, if you know anything about like make.com, Zapier, JSON, N8N, that kind of stuff, you can literally plug in a workflow that does all this for you. So as soon as and it all triggers from that Stripe invoice. So as soon as they pay it, boom, that flow starts, and very clean to kind of follow up. I just did a big training with Score about client onboarding, which is why I'm kind of nerding out about this. But it is the number one area that businesses miss out on. It's so much easier to sell to a customer that you've already had than a new one, right? The cost of acquisition on an existing customer is so much more minimal. So yeah, it seems obvious, and every business out there says we're here for the customers, but it is a gap that I think a lot of us kind of overlooked sometimes because we get stuck in the process and in the weeds, and the small personal touches that you add up along the way will make up for a lot of blunders. My as my grandpa would say, one aw shit cancels out 10 attaboys. And so you want to get as many attaboys as you can to make up for any of those times where, like, oh, he might have been, a day late on that project or something, or there might have been a typo in this thing. But, they're not going to be super upset about that because, you're their best bud, Alex, right? So anyway, that's my philosophy, at least.
That's really cool. Okay, can I ask you another question related to that?
Sure.
Would you recommend so I'll give you an example. I work with a website designer. Her name's Christine. She's wonderful. And she consistently sends me website copy clients. She allows me to follow my own process. They, become essentially my clients, but she's paying me so that they only have to pay one person.
Yeah.
And I've kind of thought about, if I were to treat them as my own client, does that sort of trump the fact that they're her clients in a sense, and I'm just the white label partner? Because really, I treat Christine like she's my client, and I'm just working through. Does that make sense?
That does make perfect sense. And I think this is like one of those ethical, moral things that lots of folks run into. And for many of the folks that are listening to this, I imagine, this is something that if you're a salesperson or like an account manager or customer success manager, this is a thing that you run into a lot of times as well. Is like you've built these relationships with these clients, and they're under the umbrella of the quote unquote company that you're working for. What happens when you leave, right? Do you take those clients with you? Is very similar in kind of philosophy. But it is interesting that you have that working relationships. I imagine Christine and you are on good terms, and so I think I don't think it would hurt just to ask. I think my philosophy when I work with my partners is it's like I want everyone to succeed, and so I'm not super protective about like if folks want to be like, hey, Alex, I was working with a customer of yours. Do you mind if I just like offer them this? Like a good example is I was just working with a customer that wanted me to do hourly work on some development work. And, not to sound too pretentious, but like, we do package-based pricing, and I'm not, I know it would take me a couple hours, but I'd have to do 1 million of those a month to get the business that I need to do to do this full time. And so a friend of mine on a different podcast, Justin from Flow Devs, he was like, what, I'll step in and do that work. And so I think, I'm kind of lost the sauce here, got long-winded here. But my philosophy is I think Christine is probably going to be fine, with you saying, hey, do you mind if I, like nurture this relationship and like maybe we do something different, maybe take it away from the website? Because I imagine if they're asking you for writing help, they probably need work in other areas.
Yeah.
And you can still have that partnership, as long as you're not suddenly like building websites, right, Maddie? I think don't want to speak for Christine, but I know her too. And, I feel like she'd be fine, but I don't work with her regularly like you do though.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think for me, it was just a mental block of, they're not my clients. I'd love to give them a really cool onboarding experience, but they already just onboarded with Christine. So is that confusing to them to have two onboarding experiences?
Yes. So that definitely, I think, would add a little bit of chaos to the mix a little bit. I think what I would maybe do just to kind of maybe differentiate yourself and like kind of separate and like just say, this is, it's almost like a Best Buy meets Geek Squad, right? From back in my corporate days. It's technically the same company, but like, different experiences. And I think that could be part of it too, is like the way you present is, hey, this is, like Lake Design Co. meets Lemay Story Studio, like, crossover, right? That kind of combination.
Okay, yeah.
And then like you could potentially even do like a combined onboarding. And I'm sure there's a sense of that already, where you're jumping in and setting expectations on how the website copy is going to be written while Christine's developing and designing the website. I think, yeah, just drop it in your brand, I think would be fine. And and then some sort of co-branding situation too. And yeah, just double check, right? I'll get Christine's feedback on it, but I can't imagine, like I said, unless you're going to start like a competing website business. I can't imagine she'd be upset.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that also helps on this part here, because you deliver good work, right? And, and I know we were going to talk about some of that process on like how you kind of plan your work capacity, but we'll skip that for now. And I'll just talk a little bit about the reputation management, because I'm very curious, how do you get reviews as a white label? Are you just getting kind of one from Christine, or, with those folks that are under that white label umbrella, do you reach out to them to give you a review on Clutch, Google, those kind of places?
I probably don't reach out enough, but I do reach out to the clients.
Okay.
And yeah, my referral partners are never weird about that at all.
Good. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Reviews are gold. Do you have any video testimonials or anything, or is it mostly text?
It's all text.
All text?
Yes.
I was just working with a customer. I do tools integration consulting, and they wanted help getting video testimonials. And so I've just been embedded in that world lately. And I'm like, I got to get a lot of these for my website. But if you're looking for...
That's a really good point. Maybe at some point I should hire it out, because I think the blocker, just speaking for me, but I think for a lot of people is, I don't want to have to, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I know it's important, but...
Yeah, to give you an idea of what we do, and this can be automated, doesn't have to be, but what we've built is a reputation management automation that is a 3-part system. So you send out a form, an internal form, that asks them how the service was. If it's 5 stars, they get a nudge to review it publicly. And if it's not, then it goes back to you, and you can figure out why it's not 5 stars and hopefully prevent them from going publicly. And then they post it on whatever platform. We're on Clutch and Google mostly, but once they review that, then the automation then reads it. Depending on what it is, it then prompts for a case study to write internally, or it'll reach out to them and see if they want to do a video. And the tool that we plugged into for that was FameWall. We like that because it's got an unlimited plan that's very cheap. And this partner has a lot of pre-existing clients that they wanted to work with, but any of the other video testimonial ones could work, especially in the business-to-business sector, where you're probably not sending out hundreds a month, where you don't have to worry about those limits. So you can automate that. Otherwise, just steal that flow, just do it manually, and they record it on their own device. So that's, if you're hiring it out for like a production company too, one thing that has worked is if you go to like a trade event or you're hosting some sort of event for your customers to show up to, maybe especially if they're local here in the Twin Cities, some sort of like free, gathering for all of Lemay Story Studio's clients. They get, free barbecue or something. Then you could hire a videographer and just have a little booth and, record a little video testimony about your experience, and you get entered in for a drawing, right? Something like that. And then that's an easy way to get video reviews in that end for everyone listening. So I was going to ask, Maddie, where are you at? Are you on, I assume you're on Google reviews. Are you on Clutch, or what platforms are you on?
Just Google.
Google? Okay. So my suggestion, and I'm repeating advice that I heard from someone else, so this may or may not be true, but I would recommend definitely get on Clutch, right? Okay. If you haven't heard of Clutch, Clutch is a space dedicated for business to business services. So it's a place to check out. It's, you and I are in a very similar, I guess, niche. We're in business to business. So it's a place where a lot of decision makers go to just verify that, okay, cool, Skill Mammoth is actually legitimate, and I can trust them with their business. They'd go a little bit of extra mile. Their team actually calls your client and just, they'll do the interview with them. Cool. Well, yeah, so it's really cool. And they give out awards and stuff every once in a while. Like I think Skill Mammoth got like top Minnesotan automation companies, which feels crazy. Yeah. But it's like, maybe just because there's not many automation companies. But I don't advertise it because it feels unfair. But yeah, it's one of those things. So maybe I should. I just feel like I haven't earned it. But maybe I got to talk to my therapist about that. So Clutch is big. You can go in other places like Trustpilot, for example, and Yelp if you'd like to. And I wouldn't say like push Trustpilot and Yelp that much, but a lot of people say that this helps with, like if I Google like Lemay Story Studio here, and awesome, 5 stars, 12 Google reviews, looking good. And we scroll down here, all these different sections. We got a post on LinkedIn with reactions. We got cool, your post on Canvas Rebel. You're on Twitter here. So this just basically it fills out. So the more places you're on, you'll have Clutch, you'll have Yelp, you'll have, Trustpilot and all that kind of stuff. So when folks are like Googling you, they just see you like all the way to like, third, fourth page.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can see kind of like we're getting some random ones here, but other folks like Rent in Lemay, Missouri, right? But you get it. So that's kind of the suggestions I've been told from people that are much more smart than me. So I'm just parroting their advice.
Okay.
Cool. All right. I know I've been yapping in this portion, so I'm going to go ahead and let's talk about what you wanted to talk about today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. For those of you who took a look at the flow, this will be shared in the description, so you can kind of see a little bit of the behind the scenes of the Lemay Story Studio process to kind of help you out with that. Just so you kind of know what's going on. But I'm going to go ahead. I'll stop sharing my screen. And I just want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned something to me before the podcast today about some of the challenges you're running into with like forecasting and like planning your capacity as you get these jobs in. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So for context, I took a maternity leave over the summer, came back, and now I really am back to bare bones with my business. I scaled back a lot. I had a team before, now I don't have a team, and I really want to just kind of build from scratch again. And part of that, as you know, Alex, is, I can't just like delegate anymore. It's all on me. And so I'm dealing with, how do I know how to say yes and when to say no? And, part of that is the challenges with having white label partnerships and, giving them my assurance that if you book a project, I'll be there for it. Well, sometimes they're in that gray area for like 4 weeks before their client chooses to say yes. And so for me, it's kind of just the ability to sort of like time block with my retainer clients and knowing I have Monday to work on this client, Tuesday to maybe have open for meetings, and then how much more can I take on in the week. And I do use Monday.com. I've used Asana before, but one thing that I've been missing with Monday.com is the ability, and maybe it has this and I haven't figured it out yet, but the ability to estimate how much time is this going to take me, and then how can I add this into my month so I can plan accordingly.
Yeah, so that can be tough. So I'll start off with the most basic thing that folks can do, and it sounds like you're already doing this to at least some extent. There's this, if you haven't read it, read The Goal by Eli Goldratt. It talks about a concept called theory of constraints. Theory of constraints is one of the most common business buzzwords that you hear out there. So many people misapply it, right? They just kind of use it to say, we follow theory of constraints, and they don't follow it at all. So, but kind of oversimplifying what theory of constraints is, it's like if you want your business to run, you take a look at the thing that your bottleneck, the thing that's keeping you from doing the work, and then everything else is subordinated to that bottleneck, which means a good example, it's from the book, is imagine you're a Boy Scout leader, right? And you've got your kid and you've got like the 5 other boys and you're going on a hike, right? The fastest kids will be a mile up on the trail in front of you. This is like a process that you're really good at. This is something that like, you can do very easily. Maybe, in this case, writing, right? Or something like that. Or, maybe not in this case, because we're talking about time management, but, I don't know, sales or something like that. But then the fat kid, right? This is your constraint, is in the back and you have to stay with him in the back, but you're losing those kids that are way up front. Mm-hmm. And so instead what you can do in this kind of example here, this metaphor is, you take the chubby kid and you say, all right, all the other boys, you're going to take his pack. You're going to take all of his stuff so he can walk as fast as possible. He's now going to be the leader. No one can go past this constraint. And what you're saying to me, Maddie, right now is basically you kind of picked up on that. You found the chubby kid in your business, which is your capacity to do work. And so you just need to subordinate everything else in your business to that, because you can only do as much as this, because otherwise you're over-promising in this instance. So, and it works pretty nice too, because, then you don't end up with a whole bunch of inventory, right? On the other end, like if in this case, a whole bunch of people waiting for you to do the work for them, because they're behind you doing the work, it's impossible for that to happen. So, all right, now an actual practical way of how to apply this. So what I would recommend doing early on, if you haven't, is just book those early mornings. I know you have a kid. I have a kid too. She's 15 months now, and what I do is I work from 4 a.m. to about like 6:30 a.m. every morning, and I block that time just for client work. And because it's before anyone's ever even awake and, my daughter's asleep, there's no distractions at all. There's nothing to pull me away from the work. And it's some of the most productive time I have in my business. From 6:30 to 7, I help my wife get Ellie ready to go to the daycare. And then I go back to work and until 8. And then that's my kind of like deep work block. And so, I know you've read Deep Work by Cal Newport. So, that's something that he advocates for. So that's at the bare minimum for everyone listening. Even if it's not the most structured time in the world, just give yourself some time that's with zero distractions. And what I would recommend too is stage it in a way where you're focusing on one thing at a time for a long period of time. So many people think that they can, all right, I'm going to focus on this for half an hour. Then I'm going to focus on this for half an hour. This is when you run into this thing called switching costs. Mm-hmm. Without going too into the weeds about this, think about it like, if I'm going from task A to task B, it takes my brain like 5 minutes to kind of rewire itself to go to task B. So if you switch from A to B to A to B, or, to C, D, E, F, right? That's 5 minutes every single time that you're being not productive. But like batching stuff together is important. If you can't do it that way, just make sure the stuff that is similar is batched together. And that way, the switching cost is minimized because your brain doesn't have to rewire as much. So that is the bare minimum. As far as to how you can automate this and help with your forecasting, I'm going to suggest some tools, but you can this could work with Google Sheets, to be honest. But I would recommend some sort of time tracker early on, just so you can get, and you could probably skip this step if you know about like ballpark how much.
I do use Toggle.
Okay, good. Toggle's great then. So Toggle's a great tool for that. So so Toggle's great for that. So you can use a tool like Toggle and then just use its built-in integrations to plop it into like a database. That can be Google Sheets. It can be something as fancy as Airtable, right? But you just want to get that data somewhere else. So then you can use formulas to calculate the time on what you're spending on each project. And then once you get like an average, right? Okay, cool. On website copy, on average, it takes me this amount of time. Then you can use another automation. And I hope Monday has something like this. But bare minimum, I know your Google Calendar has it. You just have to use a little bit of, just do some elbow grease. Is that the right term? Anyway, something like that. So what you could do is forecast time based on what you have available. So let's say you only want to dedicate 4 hours a day to, let's say, client work, right? And then probably this is my recommendation, just because what has worked for me anecdotally, is half the day you want to spend working on client work, and the other half you want to spend working on, especially as a solopreneur, getting business, right? So revenue generating activities, whether that's marketing or just outreach or just being available for sales calls, right? So that's what I'd recommend. And then, but on those, then you know how much time you have per day to spend. And then now that you know what the average time takes, that can then estimate like how much time it will take for a project to be completed. Now, what you want to do is you want to plan for Murphy, right? To kind of use the Murphy's Law term. I'm trying to remember what it's called in the theory of constraints. I think it's called a buffer is the official term, but there's something else that they talk about in the book. Anyway, you want to build yourselves a buffer because you and I both know that not every project's the same. And some clients, they'll give you a thumbs up and you're good to go. And that's all the feedback you'll ever get. Other clients are going to go in and just change probably 90% of like your entire, whatever you're creating. Yeah. Well, this is right. We like to use this word instead. And it's like, okay, now I got to do all this revision. Just, you want to, once again, we're subordinating to the fat kid here. So just plan the worst case for every single situation. And then what's really cool is when you end up with extra time, because you will end up with extra time. This is also a great way to budget, by the way, is you will get extra time is now you can use that time on some of the low hanging fruit that you had kind of put on the back burner in the past. And, like maybe working on new product items, maybe working on, I don't know, like video sales letters to put on your website, working on different ad copy to put into a campaign. So this is an oversimplified version of what this would end up looking like. But to kind of give you some tools ideas is I would say Toggle Track is great. Then you could use make.com to tap into the API there to plug it into whatever tool you want. So in this case, I would recommend probably Google Sheets is the easiest. And then you could literally just use some spreadsheet math to figure out what the average time is. And then from there, you can go low technical and just use average math on like, I have 4 hours of available client work a day. And then that'll shoot out like, okay, cool. Based on the current amount of work that I have versus the projects that I have currently coming up, I know this project can be completed by X date. And then you can tell that client, boom, with a more accurate representation, with a little bit more of just behind the scenes back end automation API connections. You could probably plug in your Calendly meetings. You could probably plug in Monday.com, your Outlook or Gmail calendar, and then it will give you like a more concrete idea. Because then you could schedule out, okay, I'm going to, I don't know, Florida to the beach for spring break or something, and then it'll factor that in as well.
Okay.
There is a very fast, quick and dirty way, and then there's a super complicated way too. But even the quick and dirty way is going to get you the results that I think you're looking for, which is how do I honestly project my work?
Yeah, that's helpful. I think it's just been an adjustment since having a kid, and I'm sure you can relate to that too. Before it was like, I just will work more. I'll take anything.
Yeah.
Yes to anything. If I need to work 80 hours, I'll do that. And now it's like, okay, that's not realistic, nor is it what I desire. So how do I say, this is what this is what I want to spend. This is the time I want to spend working, and anything beyond that, I'm just going to either say no, or we're just going to have to extend the timeline. So those tools are helpful. I'm going to have to look into them.
Yeah. And like I said, like, for any of you who are like, man, I don't want to add a whole bunch of tools to my repertoire, for those listening, you can do this just by having a good estimate, honest estimate on how much your average project takes, how much time and hours it takes for you to do that. Then divide that by, like the days of week that you work, then divide that by the hours that you that you have dedicated to client work. And that'll tell you how many weeks, days it'll take to do your project. And then that's like the bare minimum that you need. You can do that all in Excel just by having an honest number, or Google Sheets, like I said, an honest number of like how long it takes your average project without any of these other tools. But if you want to have like, it down to like the minute, right, of the estimated time, you can plug in other things as well. But awesome. That was really fun. That was a really fun like thought experiment. Thank you, Maddie, for giving it my way. I hope it helps as far as a solution. And I might, once I find the buffer time, I might just make a little YouTube video of me building that just to show folks, how, because I think that's a very powerful tool just from time management. Yeah. Cool. So I'm going to jump to some of our rapid fire questions at the very end here. So I guess the first question I have for you is, when you're thinking about, workflows and automation, right? What is the number one thing in your life, right, personal or workflow wise, that you would love to automate?
Oh man.
And it can be silly, it can be serious, but yeah.
Personally, grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Grocery lists.
Yep. Do you have like a couple people in the family that have complex diets, hard to shop for?
No. I like making new recipes, and we're managing this through like a shared note on our iPhones. So I'll just link to the recipe, and then I'll have to manually enter in like the ingredients.
All the ingredients.
That'd be cool if that could somehow be automated.
It can. So it's not cheap right now, but there's a tool, and maybe I'll do a video about this, but there's a tool called ChatGPT Pro, right? And I know you use ChatGPT. But ChatGPT Pro is a $200 a month plan. And when you get that, you get access to this thing called Operator. Operator is basically their AI agent, which in the last episode, if you guys want to go back to it, Justin and I talk about what an AI agent is, an agentic AI. So go ahead and if you want to deep dive on that. But basically, it just means it can do a lot of stuff without you having to prompt it. It can kind of make decisions on its own. And so one of the use cases from OpenAI themselves was this very, very thing, grocery shopping. So it's able to use the internet. It's able to click on your links. It's able to even order it for you, by the way. So like if you say like, I want to, like just order all these, like every week I want, awesome recipes that I haven't tried before. Here's a list of the recipes that I tried. And then, these are the type of foods that we like to eat. These are the places that we like to shop. Just have it delivered on Monday at like, 1 p.m. and it'll do that all for you, right? Because it's insane. It's a little slow because you can actually watch it do it, but you don't have to sit there and watch it. You can go about with your life and it'll do it for you. So, yeah, a great example is my wife is going on a trip to Europe this summer with her friends, and she went to college with somebody who lives there now, so they're all going to meet up and then go to like 4 or 5 different European countries. And we asked Operator, like, hey, can you budget this plan for us? These are the places that we're going. These are the tickets. Can you go ahead and get the pricing and everything for all these different places? And it gave us the pricing, gave us the links to the Airbnbs to book, gave us, we could have asked it to book it for us, but we're like, we're not quite trusting you to just book a whole trip for us just yet. But anyway, great tool. So I'm excited about it. The only challenge right now, it's $200 a month, but
And if it saves you that much time.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been trialing it this month, and not to get even like too deep in the weeds. One great use case, another one that we did was, I have a sales employee that lives in Detroit, and then I of course live here in the Twin Cities, and we were like, okay, like how do we find networking events where we can potentially get referrals? So I literally just had operator look, all over Minnesota to find me referral groups to join that have a structured thing, because I'm not really good at the whole open networking. I'm better when they give everybody like 60 seconds to kind of tell about your company and stuff, because I feel awkward to just start pitching randomly. So it found like 7 different places I can go, and I've already booked 2 of them. And same for Andy out in Detroit. So that's another use case, right, where it helps just on the business side of things. So anyway, that was my rapid fire question, and I just kind of yapped for like 5 minutes. Another question is like, what is, I know we talked a little bit about books today, but what is like a go-to business book that you'd recommend our listeners check out?
I feel like we already talked about both of them. Unreasonable Hospitality and Marketing Made Simple, or Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller.
Yeah, that's a great one too. And I think to tap onto that, Donald Miller also has the Small Business Flight Plan. I think I could be mispronouncing the name of that particular book. A great metaphor for how to run your business, I think, like what each department, or I guess function, if you're a solopreneur of your business, what they serve as, and kind of to help when you need to add fuel, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And I would second Story Brand. It's huge. It's a great framework to communicate with folks, in a way that I think is a little bit more compelling than your average stuff. Cool. All right. Last bit of advice. If there's is one bit of business advice that you could give everybody, what would it be?
One piece of business advice, what would it be? I would just say, if you are committed to pursuing excellence, not perfection, that's different, but pursuing excellence and just really committed to serving the people who are paying you, you're going to succeed. And I think just trusting that process. I think my first year, I was so panicked about what was coming in next month. I have business this month, but what's happening next month? And it's like, just trust yourself that you have the network, that the people that you're currently serving are going to refer you because you're doing a great job for them, and things will happen.
Yeah, I would second that completely. Do great work and people will come, and then have a little bit of faith in the leading indicators. I think to tap into it. Like if you're doing the work, it should show up. Just make sure you're putting in those reps though, right?
Yep.
Don't just sit back. Actually do the work. Cool. No. Well, thank you, Maddie, for the great advice, and thank you for staying on a little bit longer here today as we were deep diving some of your processes. Maddie, where can our listeners find more about you and Lemay Story Studio?
You can head to my website at lemaystorystudio.com. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, just Maddie LeMay. And shoot me a message if you see me over there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Maddie. Do you have any last words for the audience?
Now, thanks for listening.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Maddie. And to our audience, thank you for listening to Workflow Wonders. Don't forget to do all the things. I would love it if you could rate the podcast 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Comment if that's a feature. I know on some of the apps it is. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow on all the things. Do those things. And of course, keep refining your workflows. And we'll catch you next time, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. Awesome.